senior year college prep research project at East Boston High, he figured this plaque must be an homage to a Bostonian luminary, some minister or abolitionist, poet or politico, whose conviction helped hone a city upon a hill, or what poet Anne Bradstreet more aptly called a city above. William Blackston or John Winthrop, or John Cotton, perhaps. Maybe one of the Mathers, Increase or Cotton, possibly Paul Revere, or even Ben Franklin, or Sam Adams, possibly James Otis or Joseph Warren, maybe Anne Bradstreet herself, or poet Phyllis Wheatley. John Hancock was always a smart guess in Boston. Could be Abigail Adams, or her husband John, or their son John Quincy. Perhaps Thoreau, or his doomed soulmate, Margaret Fuller. Can't go wrong with Emerson or Hawthorne, or Louisa May Alcott, for that matter. But no, it would be none of these predictable worthies. Valentino Detti stepped closer to this conspicuous monument in the very guts of Copley Square, and saw its subject. This was no venerable American hero, but someone most Bostonians had no doubt never heard of. It was guru and mystagogue Khalil Gibran, author of The Prophet, one of the most lucrative books in history, and one that Valentino Detti had, by a coincidence, much more than coincidence, he was sure, read when he was an inner-looking 10-year-old. It was his first adult book, from his mother's shelf, nestled improbably there between the King James and Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking. And he'd read The Prophet again, just last month, now that he was more inner-looking than ever. He developed something close to a crush on Gibran. He knew that since its publication in 1923, The Prophet has never been out of print. He knew that it has been translated into more languages than the Red Sox have players. At 10, he'd been stirred by the book. At 18, now, he was emboldened by it. Odd that he'd never known of this plaque in his hometown. Gibran's smattering of adrift aphorisms seemed to him helpfully vague enough to mean anything at all, receptive to whatever weather blew through him, whatever personal profundity he hunted. Your daily life is your temple and your religion, and in your longing for your giant self lies your goodness. The snippets of poetical wisdom, even in their imitation biblical tone, approximated Valentino's own. They were the very notions, abstract and nebulous, okay, but he was half sure he could improve upon the prophet. The very notions he himself had been formulating for most of his life. How to live? What is my role in my fate? What agency do I have to attain enlightenment? Brought up in Boston's South End, Gibran, son of a seamstress, was a truly gorgeous youth, had a face imbued with potency of soul. Here was another coincidence, much more than coincidence, because Valentino Detti had himself been told, on more occasions than he could recall, what a phenomenal face he had, a truly unprecedented face, almost shocking in its depth and beauty. Gibran's early beauty, aligned to such able charisma, allowed him to snag the benefactors who sustained his gurudom. Valentino Detti knew this because last month, after he'd read The Prophet for the second time, the spare yellow hardback had called to him again from his mother's bookshelf like a, how would Gibran have put it? Called to him like the soul whistle from a yellow bird. He did what he always did after reading a book that bore into him. He researched its author. He took copious notes. If most other Bostonians had forgotten about Gibran, Valentino Detti would be committed to bringing Gibran's shtick back into prominence. Copley Square, then, in our polis of contradiction, epitomizes great Bostonia. The churches, the library, the skyscraper, the guru, the faith, the knowledge, the money, the mountebank. Sacred with profane, preachers with peddlers, ethereal with ephemeral, antiquity with modernity, scholar with swindler. So when Valentino Detti ambled into Copley Square that August afternoon, he'd ambled, he knew, into the epic collisions of American character.